nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my faithful co-host Glenn Martin, and we are here for you guys at 410 Sports Talk to talk about what we learned from the Super Bowl, give our reactions. But before we get into it, and of course how it applies to your Baltimore Ravens, before we get into it, take a second, hit the subscribe button, give us a like, leave us your comments, and then also make sure to check out our live. We're going live tomorrow from 7 to 9. Today is Monday. Tomorrow is Tuesday the 9th. So February 9th, going live, 7 to 9 p.m. Make sure to check it out. And every Tuesday following that, unless of a natural disaster or some sort of other life event. But for the time being, 7 to 9 every Tuesday. All right, Glenn. Tom Brady, number 7. As much as I don't like to say it, not that I'm a hater, I respect his game and his discipline and his longevity.
He's the GOAT.
He's the GOAT, absolutely.
If there was any doubt, that doubt is now erased. If there was ever any doubt I guess there's still going to be some doubt in this, but in my mind, if there was any doubt who was most responsible for the dynasty, in my opinion, it should be erased. It is the GOAT, Tom Brady. And look, I'm a Ravens fan, so I experienced a lot of heartbreaking losses at the hands of Tom Brady. But here's the good news. At least most of us have already come to the understanding that he is the GOAT, right? So the good news is that Pat Mahomes is not the guaranteed next in line to take over that mantle, because now, after his last 2 losses coming at the hands of Brady in now 2 different uniforms, and in just such a bad fashion for Mahomes in this latest one, I think that now next GOAT is up for grabs amongst a lot of young guys. Mahomes is definitely still the leader in the clubhouse with the Super Bowl and the MVP and all that, but this opens the door for a bunch of guys, including Lamar Jackson, because, man, I did not want to see, finally, we got done with the dynasty that is the New England Patriots. I did not need to see another one starting up as soon as that one left in Kansas City. So I'm glad that Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs lost, because there's no chance of him ever surpassing Tom Brady as the GOAT. And while I'm not a Patriots fan, I've resigned to the fact that Brady is the GOAT. Okay. I don't need anyone else challenging him that's not wearing purple. Okay. So, so that's right off break. That's my reaction.
And the fun thing is, just like we were talking about earlier, kind of a teaser here, we're going to get into how much this loss for Patrick Mahomes can positively impact Lamar Jackson tomorrow night. We're going to have an in-depth conversation about that and what it means for Lamar's career trajectory, when it talks about staking his claim in the history of quarterbacks. But as far as this game goes, there's some key things to talk about, in this game. And the first thing I want to address is the fact that I'll tell you what, everyone talks about the players on the field do it, but coaching is so important in the NFL. Coaching. And Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles.
Yes, sir.
Not to be confused with Byron Leftwich, who...
But you got to give Byron some credit now.
No. But a reporter asked Byron a question in post-game thinking that he was Todd Bowles.
Oh, that's a good look.
And so he was like, dude, I'm not Todd. But anyway, not to be confused. Todd Bowles, man... think about the quarterbacks. Let's see. The quarterbacks he took down, the offense he took down on the route to the Super Bowl. He took down Drew Brees. Let's see. First round, okay, they took down the Redskins. But then he took down the offense, the machine that is the New Orleans Saints, right?
Yep.
And then following that, took down the machine that is Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers. And then Baby Goat, right? Everyone wants to call him Patrick Mahomes.
Could there have been a more impressive run of quarterbacks than Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes to beat? And let's not discount, I believe it didn't Alex Smith didn't play in that game. That's right. Come back. But pretty good performance by Heineke, I believe his name was. Incredible run and performance but the coaching, I think you're right to point out Todd Bowles. They played the Chiefs earlier in the season, got absolutely pantsed. It was embarrassing. And then to hold them, that Eric Bieniemy, a supposed led offense, to just 9 points and hold Pat Mahomes to no touchdowns and 2 interceptions was incredible. But Byron Leftwich also deserves some credit, because you talked about coaching. I think this leads into coaching. I think the most balanced offense won the game. I look at Tampa Bay. They were fantastic through the air in the first half, but really controlled the game on the ground in the second half with a combination of Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones Jr. They were able to really establish both. I mean, there's nothing they couldn't do last night. I mean, they had 145 yards rushing, 195 yards passing, very balanced attack from them. And really it's the efficiency that was the most impressive. You know, it's not like Tom Brady was out there slinging the ball all over the place and throwing it 1,000 times. No, he threw it 20 times less than Pat Mahomes. You know, he threw it just 29 times, but he completed 21 of them. So, yeah, I think the most balanced team. So, you know, when a lot of fans get frustrated that, you know, the Ravens don't have a passing attack, I agree with you. I get frustrated too. But let's not lose, you know, that rushing attack along the way of finding the passing attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing, you know, you talked about balance and how important that is. And JT O'Sullivan came on our show, of course, and said that balance isn't the word he wants to see with the Ravens offense. He wants to see harmony, you know, being that they're mutually benefited by one another, the pass and the run, and one sets up the other. I love that. And the reason I bring that up is because if the Chiefs last night, you noticed in spots that Edwards-Helaire was running the ball well.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you wonder if they had some harmony or some balance within their offense to where they could lean on that more, right? And not be
even
so
from a philosophical
reliant.
standpoint, not necessarily
Exactly.
can they run it, because it looked like they could.
Right. Yeah. Just to get in the mindset of, that's a great point. Just to have the mindset to say, you know, we're going to run the ball. We're going to stick to the run, you know, 20 to 25 times a game. I think that could have at least done a little bit in stopping the bleeding, right? Keeping a guy like Brady off the field and slowing the pass rush.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's another big point that we're going to talk about, but slowing them down, you know, would have, as far as wearing them out, would have been huge, right? They probably wish they had Gus Edwards and Greg Roman's rushing attack yesterday.
Now, and absolutely. Now, when I say, and we talk about the harmony, the balance, and I understand the game circumstance, you know, the team with the big lead is going to be able to run the ball more towards the end of the game.
Right.
And let's be honest, the Buccaneers, to achieve that balance, use the throw a lot of times to set up the run. You know, whereas the Ravens like to do it in opposite. I think the beginning of the year they tried to establish the throw and to set up the run, but they ended up having to fall back on their bread and butter, what they do best. But you know, I just love that they can do both. They could beat you in any way. They had two good backs that could pound you with a big, heavy offensive line, and then obviously Tom Brady could eat you up and take shots down the field. But yeah, I want to get into some of that pass rush, because I found, you know, throughout the playoffs, it looks like the pass rush gets ratcheted up anyway. But what I found was impressive is that they did it with just mainly four guys. They did it, and they did it in a creative way. If you remember, Jimmy, they put Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh on the end, and they had Shaq Barrett and whoever else, Levante David or a number of different guys, JPP, exactly, on the inside. And they just let Big Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh just bull rush on the outside and condense the pocket, and then just bring their speed rushers up the middle. Now, I know that the Chiefs' offensive line was banged up, and, you know, I'm sure that hampered them in a lot of ways, but I thought it was very creative. And they got constant pressure with just four guys all night. And as good as the Ravens were at pressuring the quarterback, Jimmy, they were not good at doing it with just four guys. They needed to blitz to get that kind of pressure. So, you know, when I'm looking at Yannick Ngakoue, and I'm looking at Matthew Judon expecting 15 a year, I'm thinking, that's going to be tough. But I also, at the same time, I'm wondering, where is this pass rush going to come from if both of those guys walk? I mean, we struggle to get a pass rush with five guys, six guys sometimes, much less four, which is what the Tampa Bay Bucks were able to do to that way. They could still double Tyreek Hill. They could still bracket Travis Kelce, because they were getting a pass rush with just four guys.
Yeah, you're right. Well, one solution, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Shaq Barrett a free agent?
Yeah, $20 million a year.
No, he's gonna get the bag, because guys that win the Super Bowl
and play big in big moments,
right, they tend to get paid more. But you know, that's a great point, because at some point you got to do one of two things. You got to take a couple swings early in the draft, or you got to pay somebody in the free agency market. And like I've said before, 2 4s, I think in the pass rush, as much as it does in other positions, it doesn't equal an 8, right? Like the great Jerry Buss, I'm sure you've heard Max on First Take talk about this, that 4 quarters doesn't always equal $1 when it comes to free agency. Right. So, like, man, we're going to need a guy. We're going to need a Terrell Suggs, a Peter Boulware, of
Darius Smith.
Right. Yes. The name, you know, the list goes on and on. Michael McCrary type guy. And it's going to be interesting to see how we acquire that. And probably more than one, like you said. I mean, we need some names.
The good thing is, for the Ravens, is that their fantastic secondary is so good.
Yeah.
So good that they could get away with a 5-man rush, a 6-man rush here and there. But I don't want to be so reliant on it that you're having to do it 48, 49% of the time, which is how the Ravens have had to get their pass rush. So hopefully they can find a way because, I mean, look, as much as we like Brandon Williams and we like what he brings to the run game, I'm not sure if he'll ever, and at this point in his career, I think it's pretty safe to say he's never going to develop into all of a sudden a pass rusher. So,
Right.
And Calais is getting older and all that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to fill out that offense or that defensive line because it's easy to say, well, just rush 4 and drop in coverage. Well, yeah, but most people can't get pressure with just 4. They could.
Right. Well, let me ask you this as far as my next point of emphasis, something that I learned from this game is that obviously Tom Brady's a much older player. He talks a lot about mindfulness, talks about being in the moment and being present. One of the things I learned from him, and this isn't just about Lamar, but you saw the contrast between him and Patrick Mahomes. Now, Patrick Mahomes' pocket, he was running for his life. I mean, nonstop.
29 pressures, by the way, highest in Super Bowl history.
He ran. Did you know in avoidance of their pass rush, he ran for 497 yards. Like,
how insane is that?
All around behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it's insane. He had to have been exhausted.
Yeah, but the thing I'll say about this is that Tom Brady is the master of the check down, of the master of taking what's there for him. Him and Drew Brees, I think, are like two of the best at that, right? Like, so what I'm trying to say is that, and the reason I bring up the maturity and the age and the mindfulness and stuff like that is that I think one thing that Lamar can take from that is knowing that a 3-yard pass to a playmaker is okay, right? Like, that's okay. You can do that on a play and it's not a ruined play. That was one thing that I noticed last night. Obviously, their playing styles are very different in Mahomes and Brady, but I think also their age and maturation as a player, where Mahomes is still in the upswing and Brady is whenever his
he's still in the upswing. I don't care what anyone says.
Well, mental maturation.
Yeah, that's why I say he's still in the upswing up here because he's getting better and better still to this day.
Okay, all right.
I know you don't like Brady, but
no, but I
look, this guy works on his game still as much, if not more than anyone in the league at 43.
Fair, but I guess what I'm saying is that in year 20, even if it's his incremental knowledge, you can only, you know what I mean, where Mahomes and Lamar have like light
they have
years
a lot
to go.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's what I was trying to say is that there's a definite difference, but my point in all that was it was noticeable in the fact that Brady doesn't consider a dink and dunk pass a worthless play or a play, you know, because those things turn into big plays. So my only point was that was something that was reinforced to me that I want to see Lamar do early.
Yeah, and I think it's more about patience. I don't think
Yeah.
Pat Mahomes would look at like a check down or a hot throw. I don't even know if it's more check down. It's more as finding the hot and getting it to the hot receiver. You know, that and taking what the defense is giving you. The defense was saying, we're not going to let Ty Hill beat us over the top. We're going to double team him every time. We're going to make him insignificant. We're going to make you we're going to make you have a 10 to 12 play drive where you're throwing it underneath, taking what we're giving you and settling for that. We're not going to let you hold the ball as long as you can in the pocket. Let a guy finally beat us deep, and then you hit the home run ball. But what you're right, what Tom Brady does, he says, I'll take whatever you want to give me. If you want to give me the under route, we'll eat you up with that. And then as soon as you slip up, as soon as you mess up and let one of our guys by you, I'm going to catch you and I'm going to hit it. It's his he's just the ultimate field general. He sees everything you're going to do. You can't confuse him. He makes you pay. I mean, there's a lot of times if you watch tape and you don't watch the broadcast view where you can really only see the line of scrimmage. If you watch behind and you can actually see the field, it's not just here. It's every quarterback misses guys running wide open. It happens all the time. But the guy who misses them the least is Tom Brady. He seems to always see them when you mess up. And to his credit, though, Pat Mahomes had a streak where he seemed to always catch you. And he always seemed to hit the open guy. But Pat Mahomes wasn't able to stay patient, take what the defense gives him, take the under route, whether it's the check down or one of the quick routes to the outside. He just couldn't keep that patience, and he was always looking for that big play. And also, though, with the pass rush, the thing that goes with pass rush is pass blocking. And boy, when I'm watching, I know they were banged up, but that offensive line, some of them were turnstiles out there, Jimbo. I mean, I felt bad for Patty Mahomes, and it's hard for me to feel bad for Pat Mahomes because we're a Lamar guys. But it really showed me that, man, do we really want to trade away Orlando Brown Jr., a stud right tackle, and hope we can replace him with. I mean, I hear people talking about Tyree Phillips. Look, he was, I think, the second worst tackle rating wise in the entire league. So, do we really want to go into a season and have another shared, position at right tackle with a couple of guys and hoping we hit on? I don't know, man. It makes me want to reconsider keeping Orlando Brown, despite him being maybe a little unhappy.
Right. No, that's a great point as well. And something that, as I think, as the draft and offseason creeps closer, something that we'll talk a little bit more as far as like pinpointing guys in the draft that might be solutions and things like that. But yeah, I agree with you overall with your point that, man, it does make you think, geez whiz, do I really want to let a known commodity go, even if it is for a high pick, with the chance that even if I take a guy high in the draft to replace him, that the guy doesn't turn out, right? He just isn't. Or I mean, how many people walking around have Orlando Brown's God-given gifts?
There's like 3 people in the league that are as long as him, lengthwise.
Right.
In the league, not in the world, so.
Yeah. So it's not like, he grows on trees. So,
right.
No, I agree with you there. And the other thing too, you mentioned this before, is that, Ryan Jensen, of course, their starting center. Now, he had a bad snap last night, which I think was funny because he comes from the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I mean, a definite upgrade in comparison to what we have. And when he left, of course, was the highest paid center in the league and well worth it. But his toughness, tenacity, looking to fight with everyone, getting under Chris Jones' skin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it also shows the importance of that position for us. And like I said, don't you dare, Baltimore Ravens, come up here with another free agent, with another undrafted guy, or try and tell me Matt Skura and Patrick McCarry are Mercedes-Benz. We know they're Hyundai Sonatas. Like, stop. So, anyway.
Look, while I agree with you, I'm hopeful that the Ravens put some capital in them. I mean, look, there's been 3 undrafted centers here since he left. But at the same time, they can say, well, who was Ryan Jensen before we turned him into a, the best center and highest paid center in the league? So He was an undrafted guy too, Jimmy. So as much as I would love to have seen him, I mean, to me, it was so cool watching. He's like, you're right. He's ready to fight everyone on the defensive line. Those are some big boys. He's not scared of anyone. No. He is just, it would be awesome to see him there, but he's not coming back. So hopefully we can find another one. There's no doubt about that. But also, the one thing else I want to talk about, and it plagued the Ravens all year, Jimmy, was penalties. Every single game we sat right here and we talked about penalties were an issue. Penalties were an issue offensively and defensively, keeping drives alive on net for them and halting drives for us. And again, penalties really killed the losing team here. They had 11 penalties, Jimmy. The Chiefs had 11 total penalties for 120 yards compared to just 4 for 39 for the Bucs.
That's a free trip down the field.
It is. And look, I agree on a couple of penalties. I thought they were bad, but at the end of the game, I definitely don't think the penalties were what lost the Chiefs the game. But what they did was they killed some certain drives. I mean, the left I'll say 2 penalties I had a big question with. I thought the Tyrann Mathieu penalty when him and Tom Brady were jawing back and forth was ridiculous. You either let them both talk or you throw a penalty on both of them. But honestly, I think it's a no penalty. They're playing in the Super Bowl. Let them jaw a little bit, separate them. They go back to their huddle. Yep. And then there was a holding penalty. I believe it was on the left tackle. It was either left or right tackle. I think it was the left tackle, which I thought was just a regular block and kind of a bullcrap call. But outside of those 2 calls, I believe all the other ones were earned. They were valid calls at horrible moments, and they killed or kept drives alive. Look, there's no excuse for how they played. They looked unprepared. They looked undisciplined at times. And Andy Reid, I mean, I'm surprised. I know Andy Reid had a lot going on off the field with the issues with his son. And I'm not so sure that didn't play a part. I mean, I don't know, because
that's exactly what I was thinking.
11 penalties is ridiculous in the Super Bowl. It just is.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, overall the penalties are insane. You need to be disciplined. I think 2 things you can take from what you've talked about is when the points of Tom Brady, and then also the lack of focus and lack of discipline as far as penalties go. It makes me think. I'm drawing a comparison here, so I want you to stick with me. When Lance Armstrong went on his tear, right, and then he destroyed the Tour de France, and then people found out years later that he was doping, which whatever. I think everyone was dope. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I'm not here to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, but the one thing that any rider will say, nonetheless, is that whatever drugs you're on, the amount of mental focus that it takes to do that in one race and dominate it, much less time and time and time and time again. I mean, no one's ever been like that. So I think that, that was something that the Chiefs lacked on defense, and that Tom Brady obviously has offensively, like you talked about. And that's something, those details and that focus is really what goes from being good to great, right? Like that, everyone is good in the NFL to a certain extent. I mean, all these guys are professional athletes, but I think that's something that the Ravens, now they talked about finish at the end of this year, but I think next year it needs to be about details, man. It's the small things, right? That they really need to make a difference at. And I think that you saw that in the penalties for the Chiefs. And then you saw that for the positive, as far as Tom Brady and his execution. I mean, it's otherworldly.
It's inspiring I mean, when I watch him, I mean, we talked about the Tyron thing. I think that was one of the coolest moments I've ever seen. I mean, it's just like you, man, we talked about before the show. You want your starting quarterback to be the one, starting the fight. You want him to be the one, like in hockey, when Ovechkin lays somebody out with a hit or throws a punch, it inspires the rest of the team. Like, man, our star is out here, throwing his body around and throwing punches. I thought that was so cool, the way he, took on that tough guy role. I just think he's so inspiring, but also what he does. And I hope Lamar can eventually get here. And it kind of, sometimes it makes you wonder how much you have to take to earn this level of respect. But the way he demands everyone's play elevated, he demands it. It's not like he absolutely expects it. And I think the worst place to be is if you're a teammate of Tom Brady and he's looking at you with that angry or disappointed look. I mean, it's just got to be terrifying. So I love the fact, and I hope Lamar can eventually get here, which I already know how much Lamar makes everyone better by his play, but I want him to eventually turn into the type of leader, or close to the type of leader that Tom is, in that he demands everyone play their best in the big moments.
And I think it's interesting, because there's a fine line where I think a guy like Ben Roethlisberger tries to do the same thing, but to me, he comes off condescending.
Right. It's all about how he does it. Yep.
Right. So yeah, and Tom is right there in the trenches. His guys love him. I'm not saying that guys don't love Ben, don't want to play him, but he's had riffs with his teammates. And so the difference in the message, as far as its content, is almost, obsolete, but the way that it's perceived, total opposite.
Total.
Right.
Yep.
So it's definitely going to be interesting there. And obviously stylistically, Lamar is different in his approach. And he's all about lead by example, but I agree with you. I hope that he can take that next step. And I think he will. I think that we saw some progress as far as Lamar goes in his leadership and his want to be a leader.
He's a young guy. He's still got plenty of room ahead of him. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, certainly. But the other thing too, I don't think we touched on this yet, is that, I mean, you might have mentioned this earlier, but defense at the end of the day can still win championships, right? Like they held the Chiefs, ladies and gentlemen, to no touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, so the defenses can still win championships, because look, if they don't, it becomes a shootout. We don't know how this thing goes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, because it's hard to keep up with a guy like the Chiefs, with a team like the Chiefs in a shootout.
Heck yeah. I mean, once they get rolling, and we kept waiting for them to get rolling, because when they were down at halftime, no big deal. They're down in every postseason game. Look, since they lost to New England a couple of years ago, they've been behind in every single playoff game, and yet they win them all. But I think the difference is, it's the defense, man. I mean, Tom Brady deserved to win MVP, but if it was allowed and acceptable, I would have been perfectly fine handing that MVP trophy to the entire defense to share, because it was absolutely clinical out there. They were impressive. And it's more impressive the fact that we saw them earlier in the season and they got absolutely torched. So it's cool to see a defense and coaching staff learn from their mistakes, and change this good. I mean, they were absolutely embarrassed the first meeting, and this time they did the embarrassing. So that was really impressive. Defense still wins. And I'm glad that the Baltimore Ravens still have a good defense, because as much as the league wants to gear penalties to help the offense, and the league knows that high scoring offense is what puts butts in the seats and draws new fans, you still need a defense to win a championship, in my opinion. And honestly, look, the Chiefs, as much as they may not have a great defense regular season wide, they step up in the playoffs. I mean, Frank Clark is a player. Chris Jones. I mean, even last night, Chris Jones was out there making plays by himself. And Tyrann Mathieu, while he struggled, he had some penalties. They were going after him a little bit. He's still a playmaker on that back end. So you still need defense, absolutely. And look, it was coming from everywhere, Jimmy. It was coming from everyone across the front, whether, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Vita Vea, and Ndamukong Suh was all over the place. And then in the secondary with Winfield and I'm blanking on all these guys, but they were all over the place, man. It was a total team effort, a great call by Todd Bowles. And yeah, you still need a defense in my mind to win the championship.
Totally agree. So overall, we wanted to give our reaction to the Super Bowl and then also talk about what we learned. Hopefully the Ravens learned and took away his notes as well. Let us know your thoughts on Super Bowl overall in the game. Happy with the performance. How does, we'll get into tomorrow. How does this loss positively, potentially, or negatively impact the chances of Lamar staking his claim as a more impactful quarterback in NFL history and quarterback history? We'll get to all that. We're going live tomorrow, like I said, 7 to 9, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.